Hello, I'm Phil Svitek, 360 Creative Coach. And in this episode, I want to talk about the phrase, fight fire with fire. Now, of course, it's a metaphor, and it's supposed to highlight how to overcome obstacles or opposition and so forth, right? However, this phrase is stupid. And it's stupid because fighting fire with fire doesn't really doesn't get you a victory, right? If you want to consider it in those terms. Now, this is a notion that I first kind of learned about through Ben Hoff's The Tao of Pooh, a really wonderful book that I recommend to anyone. And the argument he makes is that why fight fire with fire when you can fight fire with water? Of course, it's a metaphor, but certainly, in a literal sense, it's much better to fight. Like if you want to douse a fire, use water, right? You don't put out a fire with more fire. Now, in the metaphorical sense, this opens it up to a lot of different perspectives and applications. But at its core, to me, it's kind of going with the flow of certain things, right? Oftentimes, from my perspective, I see so many people complain about certain things, when in fact the easier thing is to just be like, okay, cool, that doesn't affect me, let's do that and keep it moving. And why people make certain things about it is just kind of beyond me. Not that I want to get too political with it, but for me, I never understood the pushback against wearing a mask. It's like, it's really not that difficult. And so just put it on and keep it moving. No, your freedoms are not being taken away and, all that. Just do it and, let's keep it moving, right? That's the way I looked at it. But for some, and part of the larger issue is, when I say go with the flow, listen, there are times that there are going to be real obstacles. There are going to be, moments in your life where you really want to stand up for something that is truly noble. And so that's where you want to put your focus in. And those are going to be the hard battles. But from my vantage point, I feel like we're over complaining about everything and just adding more fire when instead we should be just adding water or just keep it moving, because ultimately who cares? There are, like, it's interesting to me, there are so many injustices in the world, and oftentimes, whenever somebody wants to do good in the world, they kind of almost get frozen. They're like, well, I don't know where to begin and what charity should I join? And it's like, there really is no wrong answer, because there's so many issues with the world that by just, participating in whatever charity you decide upon, that's going to make the world a better place. And so you can't really go wrong, right? And yet, there's sometimes people choose these like totally ridiculous things to actually care about. And it's like, in the grand scheme of things, is that really the thing that we should care about? That's meaningful and so forth. And so the core of what I'm trying to get across in this episode is this idea that sometimes in life, it's easier to just go with the flow and just be like, and it doesn't mean don't question anything. The Fifth Agreement by Don Miguel Ruiz is basically learn to doubt, but learn to listen, right? And it's that second part, learn to listen. Sometimes, you can question things. It's not to say you can't question things, but listen, if it's not that big a deal, don't make it a bigger deal. Just keep it moving. So that way you can put your time and energy into something that truly does matter, something that aligns more with your beliefs, your values. Those are the things to fight for. And when you do come across those things, also, as the metaphor says, it's better to fight fire, not with fire, but with water. And so, how can you alter your methods so that you're doing that instead? Because it does seem a lot of people want to fight fire with fire, and that doesn't solve anything. And so I know it's a little bit esoteric and a little bit heady in terms of what this ultimately implies, but I do want I want you to think about it in your own terms. I invite you to think about it in your own terms. And what does that mean for your life? Where have you been fighting with fire when instead you should be using water? And what is that water? Secondly, what are some things that you've been fighting that really are just frivolous, that don't even ultimately align with what you actually care about, right? Where can you put more of your time and effort towards the things that truly matter to you? So those are the things I would want you to think about based on this episode, and I really hope you take it to heart. As always, I encourage you to comment down below or hit me up on social media at Svitek with any questions or more so thoughts of your own regarding this, the reflections you come to by doing this exercise of really reflecting. Likewise, please share this episode if you think someone would benefit from it in your life. I certainly would appreciate it, as I appreciate you, and hope to see you next time.